This is Bob, otherwise known as Uncle Bob, and my real name is Robert West. I don't try to hide that from anyone. I noticed some of the people are commenting on my comments that they don't know they don't know what's up between the right and the left. Okay, let me explain or what's happening at the ICE protest. Okay, let me explain to you what's happening at the ICE protest. About a month ago, Occupy Portland went down with Antifa and made a camp along some tracks, trolley tracks, which basically meant that the trolley couldn't go all the way over there, so they had to stop further down the line and do business. Well, so what? Who cares? They managed to block the ICE driveway for about a week, and they blocked the building and hung paper up on the camera lenses outside and stuff like that. And then Homeland Security came in because they're in charge of the security of all the government buildings and basically forced them off. Some got arrested, some didn't. And basically, they were told that if they block the driveway, they'll go to jail. Okay, since then, there's been a lot of stuff that's been happening. Residents in the area has been threatened by Antifa, um, and a business cart had to go out of business because Antifa felt that it was necessary to uh, chase this young 21-year-old lady up the street and her fiance because they served a Homeland Security officer, and they were basically told that either they toe the line of um, Antifa and the anti-immigration protesters, or suffer the consequences. Okay. Now, I've heard some people go, "Yeah, Antifa's not a gang." I've heard other people say it is. A gang in the state of Oregon is anytime you have five or more people committing a criminal act. Okay, if I were to go up the street threatening some uh, guy that owned a food cart and followed him up there and took pictures of his car and said, "I know where you live. You either do what I want you to do, or you're going to suffer the consequences," they would say I was committing extortion, or some crime like that. So the thing is yes, they're committing criminal acts. I've seen them riding around on their bikes with weapons. I've seen them walking around with weapons. Uh, Antifa is going around with weapons. They're intimidating people. They've threatened elderly people in the apartment complex next to where it's at. They've told people you can't walk up and down the sidewalk. They've told people you can't walk up and down the street. They've even told people you can't walk up and down, take the bicycle lanes. Okay, now Friday, um, cop watchers had to go out and escort an individual that wanted to protest. He said that he had several, but there was only like three of them that were willing to go get arrested. And Occupy Portland made threats saying that if you go over there, and also Antifa made threats that if you go over there or try to get over there, you won't get over there. You're going to get beat up, you'll be stopped, all kinds of crazy stuff, all kinds of threats. It's our protest, not yours. You got to get our permission, and you don't have it, so sorry, you can't do what you're going to do. Um, and that's not the way protests are supposed to be. I mean, I do my protest, you do yours, and whatever works out, works out. Okay, so what we had on this hand, we had uh, protesters that didn't like ICE, and on this hand, we had protesters that did not like ICE. And these protesters said, "Well, we're here first, and we want our protest to go on the way it is, and we have these protesters that sit there and say, "We're tired of nothing. You guys doing absolutely nothing, except maybe getting them to shut down the street once or twice a week, so you can do your street parties. Other than that, you're in your tents and stuff, doing your drugs, your alcohol, and having your sex and stuff like that. It's not a protest. You may as well just call it a homeless camp." Okay, and so and so when there's people sitting there saying, "Hey, we want to go down, we want to protest, we're willing to get arrested," of course, Portland goes, "Oh no, they're going to steal the stuff from us." So Joey Gibson and the Patriots of Prayer showed up also to assist these individuals in getting in, crossing the crime scene tape, blocking the driveway, and getting arrested. Okay, which caused Antifa to flip because Antifa does not like the Patriots of Prayer. Antifa calls them Nazis. Of course, Antifa has no idea what a Nazi is. Um, Most of the Antifa are pretty young. They're in their late 20s. Some are in their teens and stuff like that, but most of them are in about late 20s and have no idea what a Nazi is. A Nazi is anything that disagrees with their philosophies. Okay, well, you know, I disagree with uh, the way they deal with people that disagree with them. Beating up elderly people and taking their video cameras is wrong. Beating up mentally retarded individuals is wrong. So what's happening is that Antifa is deciding, well, we're going to go after whoever we want to go after. We're going to go to their homes for no real reason at all, just because they disagree with our political philosophies. Um, and if they come down near our protests, we'll chase them out. And if we can't chase them out, we'll threaten them out. If we can't threaten them out, then we'll use brutal force on them. A good friend of mine, Eli Ritchie, was jumped by 5 of them. That was a very sad situation when you take 5 individuals to jump on one person. But I understand, and that's the way Antifa operates. You know, they're cowards. Um, I find it somewhat fascinating that Antifa doesn't like sex offenders, and neither does Occupy Portland. But I hear that gargantuan lady all the time sit there and say, "Well, we don't recognize state convictions." So they have this guy that's been arrested, that was arrested 7 times and 6 convictions for um, what was that? Sexual abuse in the first degree, basically raping a child under the age of 13 years old. Um, my understanding that was his daughter, which was 9. A very sick individual. Then you have Micah Rhodes, that's been convicted 4 times of sexual abuse, and his youngest victim was 9. And they're the the Scott Weber or the Scott Weber runs security, and Michael Rhodes is one of the leaders in the Occupy camp. And this is right next to a charter elementary school. So you're putting sexual predators next to elementary school into kids, and Ted Wheeler says that's all right. That's good. We need those kind of people. Ted Wheeler is not sending the police down when the police get a call about a crime. Someone grabbed my purse. Someone grabbed my wallet. I've been threatened. I want to make a police report. Ted Wheeler's not sending the police down there. He's leaving the he's leaving it up to OHSU police for OHSU property and Homeland Security. Out of all the times that I've seen the police show up was when an ICE agent was uh, brandishing a gun on cop watchers, and basically they didn't want to look bad. But when it comes to like this 21-year-old being threatened and intimidated and stuff like that, and other businesses receiving the same treatment, and then calling the cops and saying, hey, we want an officer over here, we need a report, we need our people safe. The Portland police are like, well, no, I'm sorry, we can't do that. We can't respond down there, which is really, really, really sad. They'll respond down there if there's a gun call, or like this last protest incident where you had two groups of ICE protesters basically threatened and Patriots of Prayer saying, we're going to be there. Now you got a bunch of police because, you just can't have, a big riot on the streets and the Portland police not show up. So it's a real sad situation down there. And it's basically turning into anarchy because you have no police or very few police. Homeland Security can only has jurisdiction on their property. Though they see a fight in or around the protest area, they'll go in and break that up. That's not even their responsibility. That's the responsibility of the Portland Police Bureau, which the Portland Police is not doing. And they got orders by the police commissioner, which is also the mayor, Ted Wheeler, not to get involved in the ICE protests or calls involving the ICE protests. So basically, you can go down, you can commit a felony, and the Portland police will not respond down there because of the ICE protest. Very, very sad situation. I've talked to the lady that her and her dad owns that food cart. I've talked to her fiance. They take their profits and they turn around and use their profits to buy food, hygiene items, clothes, and help the homeless. So essentially what happened was Antifa managed to close down a business that supports homeless people. And they try to get people that are on the streets to work and stuff like that. Try to find them jobs and stuff like that. That's pretty sad when you got a group that's so mad at ICE that they'll take it out on all the businesses and people around that does not agree with their philosophy. This food cart said we're neutral. We're not taking sides. We're feeding everyone that's hungry. And a DHS officer went over and bought some food, and it sparked a huge incident. But there's been other smaller incidents where they've had people that they disagree with or dislike for different reasons or different political reasons, and they've decided that when those people went in there and eaten, has went in there and harassed them sitting down eating, and when the food cart people asked them to leave, they stood outside and acted like turds. Like I said, it's a very sad situation down there. Most of Antifa, Occupy Portland, stuff like that, support the Democratic Party. Okay, Patriots of Prayer support the Republican Party. Patriots of Prayer like Donald Trump. Antifa calls Donald Trump a Nazi. Well, why is he a Nazi? Well, because he's racist. Well, first of all, let me explain something to you. You had blacks in the German army during World War II. You had Persians in the German army during World War II. You had Turkish ass in World War II. You had Russians in the German army. You had people of all different nationalities. You had Japanese in the German army. The main difference between the German army and our army during World War II was the Germans gave other races guns. We didn't give guns to the blacks, and most of our areas were, we bought stuff and got drinks and stuff like that. Um, Basically said PX and said blacks and Japs not allowed, which is really sad because during World War II, the Japanese a Japanese division suffered a lot of casualties getting Americans that were caught behind German lines back across. So anyone that sits there and says, "Yeah, the Nazis were racist," don't know what the hell they're talking about. As far as the Jews go, during World War II, the Jews is not a nationality; they are a religion. Okay, if you read in the Old Testament about the Jews, they had the high temple and stuff like that. Temples generally represent a religious organization. If it was a capital, then that'd be something different. But their belief and their thing with God, how they represented God and stuff like that, is a religious thing. Okay, now the Germans also went after the Catholics. Anyone that didn't believe the same way they believed was pretty much dealt with by the Germans. If you believed a different political belief, off with your head. They took you out and shot you or committed some kind of violence or whatever, right? Same thing with Antifa. Okay, any news organizations that said stuff the Germans didn't like, well, they face their thing of violence. Same thing with Antifa. Antifa goes after the media too. And the religious organizations that the Germans didn't like, they went after. Well, that's funny. Antifa goes after street preachers. So they go after religious organizations too. And they're saying all this for safe spaces and peaceful protests. Well, how can you have a peaceful protest if you're out there attacking people? When you're out there causing harm, that's not a peaceful protest. A peaceful protest, yeah, you can block the streets on a peaceful protest, you can take an area on a peaceful protest, but you say it's a peaceful protest, no one is to engage anyone, and that's basically it. No one engages anyone. All right, everyone's allowed in, everyone's allowed to video, everyone's allowed to say what they want to say because it's a peaceful protest. The minute you get goons sitting there pushing people up, saying that, yeah, you're not allowed in, and at first they were sitting there saying, yeah, everyone's allowed in, come in, everyone, come in, everyone. Oh, well, we don't like you, you can't come in. Well, that's extremely contradictory. And that's exactly the way they are. They're extremely contradictory in their beliefs. It's peaceful as long as they decide they want it to be peaceful. But the minute you're sitting out there asking a question that they don't like, or you hold a belief that they don't like, then all of a sudden you're the enemy and you're an antagonizer. Even if you don't say anything, you're still an antagonizer because that's just the way they believe. And so you guys want to know the difference between Patriots and Prayer and Antifa. Well, they're basically pretty close to the same. Only difference is that the Patriots of Prayer are more Republican, and the ANTIFA, which claims to be that don't like any government, are basically democratic. A lot of them are communists, and so that's the main difference. Patriots of Prayer like our flags, and Antifa likes to burn them. So you got basically a heads up on what is happening down at the ICE protests. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of flack from both sides, but that is basically what is happening down there. Okay, threats. The ICE protesters are threatening people. They have weapons. They're looking for people's cars that they don't like. They're looking for apartments with that people they don't like, and they're trying to intimidate and threaten people and do what they can to get their thing heard, which is really, really, really sad. This is Bob from the Police signing off.